Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at race number 10 at Woodbine on a super Sunday afternoon of racing. And if you like handicapping puzzles, have we got a skull buster for you? Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 2 Nearctic, going 3/4 of a mile on the E.P. Taylor turf course. Not only do we have a full field of competitive horses, but I think you could make a case for 8 or 9 of them, at least one angle at least.
I think this is a tremendous betting race, kind of looking at the entire Sunday card, even though there's other graded stakes and just in general another stakes race on tap. This is by far the most challenging race that I think I've seen basically all meet up there. I mean, there's just so many horses that have, they're going to try different things, whether they're cutting back from a mile to go 6 furlongs, they're switching surfaces. They're all coming from basically everywhere as well. Kentucky Downs, Saratoga, you name it. And I think there's a lot of talent in this field.
Pace and trip might really determine the winner of this race. And as we see from our Timeform US pace projector, a horse like the number 3 Jazz Hands, who just went gate to wire over the synthetic at Woodbine, could certainly show speed. Remuda is a tactical type that's at the pocket last time out. Rock Crest is fast. Dream Shake is tactical. Even Big Invasion seems like the kind of horse that might be adaptable to any kind of pace scenario. So I really think this is going to come down to who gets through at the right time.
I agree. I mean, I think Rock Crest has to go from the outside post, and look at the fractions he set last time out. I know they were on the Tapeta, but he's wickedly quick. You've mentioned a couple of the others. It's going to be interesting to see how fast this pace is early on. It is 6 furlongs. It's on the E.P. Taylor, but I do think there is potential for it to be quite quick.
Dream Shake, the number 1, was a useful 3-year-old on the main track in North America, but in the United States. But he's really enjoyed a career resurgence as a 5-year-old up at Woodbine. 2 consecutive wins, including this performance in the Connaught Cup, where he got a very sweet trip. Just off the early leader, he's going to make the lead in the stretch. He'll get a little bit of drifty once he makes the lead, but he holds sway and always seemed to have enough to fend off some of these other runners. That tactical speed plus his inside post should allow him to work out a good trip on Sunday.
I agree. I think he can be tactical in here. I don't know if he's necessarily going to make the lead like he was able to in several of his starts more recently or be that close to it, but the post does help him. I do like that he has that local win. It was going longer. It was going 7/8, but I think even on the cutback, you have to respect him off that effort at Woodbine with that 97 buyer.
I'm willing to forgive that last race also, Ashley. I'm interested in your thoughts. No Lasix. That Kentucky Downs turf course can be troublesome for just about anybody. I'll give him a mulligan for that one.
I certainly will too. I do think there are some excuses, and I think there's some horses that relish that turf course. We'll talk about one of those a little bit later. There's other horses, it's just a different configuration. They can't handle it the way they would a normal turf course.
Remuda is the number 2, and this horse looked good at Laurel Park, winning an allowance race on the turf. This was his turf sprint debut, and he worked out a beautiful trip under Sheldon Russell. He just sat the pocket, the inside opened up, and he's able to finish it off very nicely. He was tested in the Troy last time out at Saratoga, and I'm not sure he really cared for the soft ground in that spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I thought he was kind of just tracking off the pace and fell flat in the late stages, and we'll see what the weather is like this weekend at Woodbine after having some warm, dry weather earlier in the week. I don't think that's going to be the same case over the weekend. And if there is significant rainfall, hopefully some wind to dry it out. As I mentioned, it's not going to be warm temperature-wise.
Jazz Hands has been managed very well in his 2 starts at Woodbine this season. Now he's going to be taking a big step up, but he does have a high amount of early speed. He was a good-looking winner over course and distance 2 starts back and almost took him all the way on the Tapeta last time.
He's going to be a long shot here. He's getting tested for class. He's kind of an interesting horse when you go down the past performances, Dan, to see where he's been and the races he's been at Turf Paradise. And now you have to say he's in his best form as of late, right? I mean, these are big numbers. They're still not necessarily the same heavy hitting numbers that we'll see here, but 2 back-to-back strong efforts up at Woodbine.
County Final, I don't think ran bad at all in the Bold Venture 2 starts back. It was a race where he kind of got in and among horses, and I just don't think he was really ever comfortable. He bounced that back in a big way at Kentucky Downs when dropped into an allowance race. We see he's the gray horse, just sort of cruising in the second flight right now. There's a big hole for him to go through, and once he does go through it, he finishes it off very nicely. Wins by open lengths.
Yeah, it wins quite easily. We say it's an allowance race. A lot of places, that is a decent-sized stakes race, Dan, with that money on the line at Kentucky Downs. I do think there were a couple of nice horses in here. Still going to get against tougher in this spot, but he cruises here. I mean, he's never under any sort of ask or urge to continue to open up, and he was able to do so.
I'm a big fan of the number 5 War Bomber. I just wonder if 6 furlongs is just a little sharp for him. He looked good winning the King Eddie 2 starts back, going a 1-turn mile, getting up close to the pace and just gutting it out late. I mean, he was able to take the lead from Treason battled him all the way to the wire. War Bomber got there first. Last time I was really keyed up in the Woodbine mile. All things considering the horse that won that race, he ran okay. A little worried about the 6, though.
He is cross-entered in the other spot with their stakes race on Saturday, the Durham Cup. I'm really curious to see him at 6 furlongs. I could see it being maybe a little bit of a question mark, but I thought 3 starts back going 7/8, he ran really well. He was, not as forward as we've seen in his last 2 because I don't think he's quick enough. But if the pace is hot and he gets a good trip, maybe he could get a share in here at what I think is going to be a decent price.
Oceanic ran very well 2 starts back in the Highlander, going 6 furlongs at Woodbine. Not a great break for this horse, but it's not like he has a ton of early speed anyway. You know where he's going to be after the first quarter mile. It'll be near the back of the pack. He tried hard to finish second. He just couldn't go with Lucky's score late. And last time out of Kentucky Downs, a solid performance. I've always liked this horse. It just seems he loves to cash checks rather than win.
He does. I do think the key, though, is the 6 furlong distance. I think last time out, 5.5 is a touch short for him. And look at where he's been. A lot of the places he's been, that's basically their main option in terms of what they're trying to go for. That level that he's been in has been 5 or mainly 5.5. And I liked his performance at the 6 furlong distance. I like him getting back up to Woodbine. We haven't seen him since early August, but he's working well. And Mailloux Gutierrez set to come up and ride him once again. And he was aboard for that race at Woodbine.
Lucky's score beat Oceanic in the Highlander. Both didn't get away to good starts, but both took advantage of a fast pace. Lucky's score might have had overall a better trip. He snuck inside of Oceanic late. He was very game to win. Then he ran well in the Connaught Cup, going 7/8 of a mile. Then he ran pretty well in the 2 1-mile races, the King Eddie and the Woodbine mile. I like this horse cutting back to 6.
I think that might have been a key move. Also, we'll see this race here from trainer Mark Cassidy. I think it's a strategic move. Having those 2 races at a longer distance, now cutting back, might have gotten a little bit out of those longer races and can really handle that cutback. And you've mentioned it. Look at the races here at 6 furlong at Woodbine. He's been very effective.
And here he is in the Woodbine mile, and I think he was kind of forced to make an early move because he knew the horse that he had to beat. The Godolphin horse was behind him. He wanted to get the jump on that horse, and maybe making that early move going a mile just sapped his strength. And considering that that horse that won is very classy, Lucky Score's coming into this race in very good form at a price. What do you do with the number 8 Mason? We haven't seen this horse in 1 year. He last raced in the Coolmore Turf Mile down at Keeneland. He showed speed that day. He's now coming off a lengthy layoff for a great layoff trainer, 4-1 on the morning line. If he goes off at that price, I'd have to back somebody else because considering the layoff and considering the fact that he found 1 or 2 better than him in his last 2 starts, I need something bigger from a price standpoint.
Oh, yeah, I can't take 4-1. Absolutely not. And don't get me wrong, we see who he's faced. Sherrill Spike, Casa Creed, Regal Glory. Yeah, he's got talent, but a layoff like that for me in a deep field like this that we've already talked about is like going through a corn maze or a puzzle. It's just so difficult. I can't back him at what I think will be a short price. And it's the Chad Brown factor as well. He does well with these types of horses, but I think there are reasons to look elsewhere.
He's a hard-trying horse to be sure, but he's also cutting all the way back to 6, a distance he's never tried in his career. Last American Exit has been doing very good work on the synthetic recently. I think the major question for this horse is he the same on the turf? Because he's going to have to be.
In his 2 attempts on the turf, they haven't been anywhere near what we've seen. And maybe it was just at a different point in his career, earlier, different connections. He's been very hard knocking, but another one, look at his record. He's had such a different campaign in 2022 in terms of 2023, in terms of those results. 0 for 6. I don't see him getting his first victory of the year in this race.
Ice Chocolat ran some promising races, going 2 turns in the 4-star Dave and the Kelso. I've always liked him as more of a late-running sprint type, even on the synthetic, where he ran second in a graded stakes race in the spring. I thought he did some good work from off of the pace. Another horse that may lack a winning profile, but give him the right setup and trip. I like him turning back in distance, and I think he'll kick in the stretch.
And I think his connections have been very adamant about keeping him in deep waters. I mean, look at his last couple. Again, we're talking about the names that he's faced, even 4 starts back. Caravel, you mentioned Big Invasion. He's been in very tough races. And I do think they're every couple, they have good performances. And I am curious to see him cut back on the turf course up at Woodbine. I actually don't mind it. I agree. I think he's got those 2 synthetic tries that have actually been decent. But I think he's sneaky in here at what I think, well, again, he's 10-1 on the morning line. I think anything close to that's a fair price.
The argument about who the best closer in this race, well, it could come down to the 11 Big Invasion, who's also cross-entered in New York on Saturday. This horse showcased a tremendous late kick in many of his races last year, and he's been put in some tough spots in 2023. The race at Churchill Downs, it doesn't look great on paper. He did not have a good trip. In the Jaipur, he was really firing on at the end of that race. I'm interested in the start up in England, where he just might have been in a little bit too tough. Last time out in the Harvey Pack, Big Invasion got back to form. It was his first race off a little bit of a layoff. He's down inside. The winner of this race, Thin White Duke, came all the way to the outside. I know the course is listed as firm. I think there was a little give to it. All in all, this was an okay race off the layoff to set him up for wherever he runs this weekend.
Yeah, he did have to split horses. I don't love that he gets beaten here at the end, but maybe, as you mentioned, there were maybe some reasons for that, and he can step up, making his second start since June. I just wonder, you look at him as a 3-year-old, he had that big win streak, and this year, hit or miss with his performances. But I do think there's, the step up for him, second off the layoff, should be there. But I wonder at what I think will be a short price. I do think we've talked about a couple horses that might be a short price. Is there the chance you can bet against him? That's kind of what I'm leaning against.
Rock Crest, you'll know him early. He's got a good amount of early speed, but he's another horse that's done most of his damage on the synthetic. And he just seems like a better horse on that surface. His race 2 starts back in the Vice region. If you want to argue, well, 5 Ace was a little bit sharp, and he didn't have a very good trip in that race. You can give him that effort, but going 6 against this caliber of competition, he might be in tough. I don't want to knock him too much. He'll be a big, big price.
He'll be a huge price. I do think he's got the ability to muddle up the pace scenario early with his natural gate speed, also with the outside draw. And I think last time out, he actually raced okay. Patches O'Houlihan, everyone's basically scared of him up there, especially on the Tapeta. Was going 6 furlongs, though. So you've mentioned it, 6 furlongs might be a little long for him. Also, I agree. I don't think he prefers the turf. So for me, respect him and respect what he could do in terms of kind of changing the complexion of this race early. But I don't see him sticking around.
Dabab is going to be cutting back in distance. Interesting that William Buick is here to ride for an underrated trainer. This horse did some good work sprinting overseas. Maybe he has excuses for his 2 starts in the States. Very slow pace in his North American debut. He tried to close into that. And then the Kentucky Downs excuse last time out against a pretty good field in the Mint Million. That's what, a $2 million race. So I think they're just going to take this horse back and hope to make one run and hope to get lucky.
Yeah, a multi-million-dollar grade 3 event at Kentucky Downs. I think they're going to try something new here. Interesting to see Buick's booked to ride and cutting back in distance. But, we've talked about this field of 13. There are a lot of directions to go, Dan.
I think it's a spread race and multiple race wagers for sure. We'll take a look at our top selections. And I won't be surprised if we're all over the place. You're going with Oceanic. I'm a fan of this horse. He's burned me so often that I'm going to try to beat him in here, which means he goes right to the winner's circle with a late kick.
I hope so. I mean, I hope you don't burn money on him once again and lose out. You said it, though, when we went through the field, right? He gets checks. He doesn't get the job done. I just really liked his effort to back at the distance up at Woodbine on the turf course. I think, for me, I think 6 furlongs is a great distance for him. Maybe wants to go 6.5. He's not going to get that chance on Sunday, but I think the price will be right. And maybe with that start over the turf course, Mailloux's going to be able to carve out that trip.
Shopping for a price with Ice Chocolat. Horse I think is getting back to a distance that he's going to enjoy. Another horse that could be running on late, but I want to use horses like the number 1 Dream Shake. I could easily use a horse that I didn't even pick in my top 4 if War Bomber scratches. Let's move the 7 Lucky Score up into there because he's been really hard hitting throughout his career. What a great race. Ashley's going 6-11, 4-10. I'm going 10-2, 5-1. It is the Nearctic and we are exhausted. Good luck.